Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the best pre-recorded news show in the entire galaxy, and that is Galaxy Tonight. I'm your host, Caradris McCall, with my co-host, Chip Washington. We'll be giving our usual glance over the past week, be interviewing the greatest racer of the recent Buckyball, and saying goodbye to an old friend. So, Chip, give us a little quick overview of what happened this week.
Well, earlier this week, paparazzis found Patreus and the princess sharing food at a nice, comfy dinner for about 3 hours, and then they escaped to his private ship. And I think FHR ITP. You could look that up because I'm not telling you for our younger viewers. Ha ha ha. Anyway, and next up we have Kui Hsien and Quivira. They refused the hikes in the new dealings with the senators' new increases in rates. Excuse me. And then we have Shadow President Hudson pressuring President Halsey to punish Panem once again because of the spread of Lucan onion head, because it was never gone. It was dulled down for a week or two, maybe 3. And now it's back at full force with 800% increase in sales and all that noise. So maybe this is just another ploy from Shadow President Hudson to get Halsey out of office. And speaking of Hudson, he met with another corporate backer for his campaign. And it is probably another boost to his, to his corporate campaign to push Halsey out of office once again. And then the princess... Avini Duval, pardon me, the name slipped me for a moment. She was on a talk show talking about how the information she gathered from all of the pilots that gave her bounties and stuff to find out who attacked the Emperor has been quite fruitful. And next on the week, we had the East India Company announce a public, quote-unquote, galactic Silk Road, where they're sharing a good trade route for anybody to use to make as much money as possible. And of course, as we talked to them last time, they will be editing it, and so it'll be new and fresh and provide lots of money for people. And next up, in addition to earlier this week, when the princess got the information about the assassination, she finally got more information and said that people in LTT 9810, I believe, are probably responsible in regards to the assassination attempt. So if you guys want to help her out, head over there and kick some ass, if you will. And lastly, because of the slave competition we had earlier this week, yes, that's right. There were too many slaves to get ready so quickly because apparently the Empire does still want slaves. So they're offering them at a huge discount for this week. So
I believe it's 20%.
I believe so as well. Oh, and before I forget, the Imperial Clippers are also at a handsome discount as where the princess was attacking to stomp out the Imperial terrorists.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Chip. And as a side note, adding on to the Galactic Silk Road we just mentioned, that actually, EIC's opened up another route called the Onion Head Express, if you want to check that out as well, while they declare that the Onion Head Express fills that little gap for the people still running around in haulers and smaller cargo ships. And actually, this one is based much more on the rare goods you can only get, from the few home systems. So, if you're in a hauler with 20 cargo space, or if you're in a Type 9 with the hundreds of tons you can carry, EIC, go for either their Silk Road or Onion Head Express. They got something for you. All right. So, it sounds like they had noble intentions about the entire thing, though. I am interested in what exactly they're going to be doing to make money off of both of these trade routes, considering that they've given them away.
I agree, but I think it's very good for the community. And as they mentioned before in our last podcast, that the economy will replenish itself at some point anyway. So at one point it might dry up a little bit, and then it'll swell back with products, and people will still be able to make money as well. They're pretty smart guys over there, so they'll update and modify the routes as necessary to make sure there's as much profit as possible in these public routes.
All right, indeed. So now, finally, having done with the news, we're going to move on to our interview for tonight. Chip, why don't you give us a little overview of what we're going to be talking about for our main segment?
Sure thing. But before we continue, since we're talking with clearly a professional pilot, as you guys will soon meet, this interview will count for this week's Top Clutch as well, because I hear he'll have some wonderful advice and for new pilots and maybe even experienced pilots for something they didn't know. As well, this will be probably my last Galaxy Tonight for quite some time, as I've been drafted into the Federal Air Force to pilot remotely piloted aircraft. This is due to the fact that Hudson is pressuring Halsey to attack Panem, and she's getting a little scared. So probably for the next few months, I will not be anchoring or doing a Galaxy Tonight for a little while, but I'll be back soon enough. In either case, today we will be talking with the 6th and 7th time Buckyball winner. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Good evening, Chip. My name is Commander Alot. I'd normally call myself a citizen of Alioth, but I'm always happy to take a long vacation whenever there's a race involved.
All right, sounds nice. Nice to meet you, Commander Alot. And since you were just talking about Alioth, is that your home? Out of curiosity, because I'm wondering, so you say you're willing to travel anywhere for the race, so where's your most recent location?
My most recent location is actually in LTT 9810, helping out the Empire. I'd normally call myself an Alliance citizen, but these cowardly attacks on the Empire I think can't be tolerated, and we've got to stamp this out.
So not only is there a race there, there's also fighting. How do you feel about that?
Well, I usually try to keep them separate, although there is also a smaller race going on called the Death Race 3300 tomorrow, which I'm also taking part in. But yeah, the Buckyball is normally a very peaceful affair, unless something's coming the other way in the mail slot, which often causes problems.
Well, as peaceful as it is, obviously the Buckyball races are considered technically illegal. How do you feel about that? Do you think it needs to be regarded as legitimate, or is it fine the way it is now?
Well, I think being legitimate would definitely have its advantages. I mean, more and easier advertising, and not so many worries about being grabbed by system authority on your way in. But I suspect that it would also mean that our racers would have to slow down and crash into fewer things, and I don't think most of the Buckyballers would go for that.
All right, then, and considering that now we're on the 7th iteration of this illegal race, how do you feel about the direction that it's currently moving in? Do you think the race is doing well right now?
I think so, yeah. But Buckyball 6 was actually the largest so far by some margin. It got around 75 races, I believe. The organisers actually switched up the format a little bit for this one. Buckyball 6 was a sort of straight checkpoint race. You just had to get from A to B to C to D as fast as you possibly could. But this time around, it's been a scramble race, so the start and finish points are, in fact, the same. You start off, and then you have to visit 7 of 11 designated nearby stations, and then come back to finish, which makes it quite interesting when you have races starting and finishing runs in the same place. The mail slot sometimes gets a little congested.
All right, sounds interesting. And though I do recall that no matter whether it was both the linear and this new scramble race, you have won both of them. So I'd like you to tell us and our audience exactly what kind of training and what you've done to essentially be, at the moment, the 2-time winner of the Buckyball.
So, I guess one thing that I seem to have mastered, and a lot of people have certainly tried, is the dark art of planetary braking, which is instead of slowing down at a leisurely, sensible pace whilst in Super Cruise, in fact trying to sort of slingshot myself around planets to slow down faster. It's somewhat error prone, and I have found myself in a creaking and groaning ship after flying straight at a planet a few times. But it does seem to save quite a bit of time, and I definitely think it's helped with my victories.
And apart from just like the planetary braking, when did you, I guess, first get interested in racing itself? When did you first, I don't know, get into an Eagle and realized, I want to stay in this ship?
The Eagle is a fantastic ship, and I did fly one, in fact, in Buckyball 7. I first heard about the Buckyball about 3 months ago, just before Buckyball 6. And interestingly, it was actually the long-range ships that did best in Buckyball 6. The Hauler, in fact, was the best ship to fly. You had all of these big ships like the Asp with its famed massive jump range, but in fact it was the humble Hauler that won the day.
What do you think that is?
So a lot of it is just that the Hauler with good thrusters and a good power distributor actually allows you to go very fast, approaching and leaving stations. Combined with that, if you strip the Hauler down so it has no shields, it can actually go up to about 32 light years. It does make it a little bit interesting trying to get in and out of stations, but with a bit of care, you can pull it off.
All right, then, and you say with care and all this other stuff, so obviously there are a whole bunch of newcomers coming into this. You said, the 6 Buckyball, 75 people all competing in this wild race, and then with the 7th one being a scramble, and you kind of mentioning the little bit of trouble with the congestion in the toast rack. I want to know, since there are so many new people who are going to be interested in the Buckyball, and no matter what its legality is, more and more people are going to join, do you have any advice or anything for people starting to get into Buckyball or racing in general?
So for me, I think any good Buckyballer needs 3 things. First, you need a good sense of humor. You have to be able to see the funny side when you're halfway into the mail slot before you see the Type 9 coming in the other direction. Secondly, you need nerves of steel. Despite popular belief, there is a little bit of space either side of that T9 in the mail slot, and you will need to aim for it. And finally, Buckyballers need impeccable handwriting. Just because there's a gap, it does not mean you can fit through it. And let me tell you, the insurance people like you a whole lot more if they can actually read your paperwork, telling them which ship it is you embedded in the station wall.
And so how many of those insurance slips have you signed?
Perhaps a few.
All right. I believe we're coming to the end of our questions list, though I did catch one last thing, since I myself, while I wouldn't exactly call myself a racer in any stretch of the imagination, I am very interested in Buckyball, and I might give it a hand if I can find the time. So would you know where I could sign up for the Buckyball or any other race? I heard you mention the Death Run 3300.
So I believe the Death Race is on the forums, but for the most up-to-date information about the Buckyball, you'll want to go to electriczee.net, which is the Buckyball homepage and should have any information you need about upcoming races, as well as the results of previous ones.
All right then. So, Chip, you got any final questions for our guest?
Sure. Well, you gave advice to new pilots and who are wanting to to race in the Buckyball races. But would you happen to have any advice to regular pilots with any pilot skills, maybe builds? Because I myself consider myself a very good pilot. Also, I do a lot of research into what kind of ships do well in what situations. Maybe you can give us some insight on that, because you yourself, I consider a professional pilot as well. Is there any techniques that you would want to pass down to the younger generation, or the generation who just doesn't know exactly how to turn off, flight assist or anything like that? Any advice would be well heeded, I think. So if you have any words, speak now, please.
So I would say in terms of racing and certainly trying to get the most speed out of a ship, it was quite surprising because the D-class components are usually known for being the lightest and thus able to get you most jump range. And a lot of people did use those in Buckyball 6, and for the most part they were the correct choice. But I actually kind of broke the mold in that regard and actually decided to use A-class thrusters and power distributor because that gets you extra speed going to and from station. It actually saves you more time doing that than the extra jump range will get you. And that advice could, in fact, work for a lot of ships in a lot of situations. If you're, I don't know, doing trading back and forth, then A-class thrusters may actually do more good for you than a little bit of extra jump range.
That is a very good point. Probably an impulse that helps a lot, but A-class thrusters wouldn't help all that much in Super Cruise as far as I understand it. Although having an A-class power distributor, as I think I talked about in a previous Top Clutch, you can do boosts more often, and that increases your speed, which is great. But why A-class thrusters? All it does is increase the threshold of how heavy your ship can be and still pilot well, or does it actually make a difference?
I believe, certainly in my experience, the rating of the thrusters will actually increase the maximum speed of the ship. Certainly, when I've done that on the ASP especially, there's quite a marked difference. It goes from, I believe the ASP was something like I can't remember the numbers now, I'm afraid. It's been a while since I've flown it. But certainly on the hauler, when I was flying that in Buckyball 6, it took the boost speed from about 280 up to about 320, I believe.
That is significant and spectacular. I will definitely have to try that, or anybody else will have to definitely test that out. And I assume keeping all the other components at D grade, is that correct? Keeping it light as possible?
Yep, absolutely.
That is great. Thank you so much for all this advice. Anything else you want to add to this interview, Caradras, by any chance?
I think myself, I'm getting a bit more and more interested every second in competing in the Buckyball, so I might have to steal that title from you in the 8th one, if you don't mind, Commander, a lot. But apart from that, I don't really have any more questions.
Well, maybe at some point we will all see each other in those races. For me, probably in a few months at least, but hopefully at one point anyway.
All right, wonderful. So again, Commander Alot, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you being here and giving our audience a little peek into the galaxy around us. So thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful night, and may your thrusters ever push you to as fast as you can go.
That's great. Thanks for having me.
All right, and now as we approach the end of our galaxy tonight, we may have to say good night to our good friend Chip Washington. Chip, you did say that you were going to be leaving us for a period of a few months. Is that anything you'd like to say, for our viewers, for our audience, before you leave us?
Absolutely. It's been a great pleasure anchoring and reading the news to everyone and starting this Galaxy Tonight podcast with you, Caradras. It's ever-growing population in the stars with other commanders, and people recognizing me in Super Cruise is a great treat, and that's all I ever wanted, was to bring the news and entertain and people to know my name. Stay classy.
All right, thank you so much, Chip, and to our audience out there, I guess that is the 5th episode of Galaxy Tonight. Remember, if you want to catch the news at any other date apart from our Friday, Saturday, Sunday deal for Galaxy Tonight, then you can check us up on the net. We should be on your usual video provider and sound provider. Just have a look at them and you should be able to listen to the news. And if you want, share it with your friends, share it with your family. Let them get more knowledge about what's going on around them and keep your galaxy in focus. I'm Caradras McCall.
And I'm Chip Washington.
And I hope the galaxy has a nice night.
I'll be back eventually. Baba booey, 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 baba